Welcome everyone to another episode of Around the Block Talk. Today we have with us Mr. Gaurav Somwanshi. He is the co-founder of EmerTech Solutions, and very happy to have you here today with us, Gaurav. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity because I believe that the work you're doing is really great. The work that is happening in the blockchain Web3 spaces needs to be documented so that there is a immediate sharing of knowledge which can help to accelerate the progress that is sorely needed here. So first and foremost, thank you for this wonderful initiative that you began. And just to talk briefly about myself, I'll introduce. So I'm from Aurangabad. I'm computer science engineer. I did my MBA from IIM Lucknow, and I had an NGO, startups. But then blockchain came into my life in 2017 January when I started working for as a consultant for PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and my client happened to be Mr. Alex Paul Menon, who was at that time the joint secretary of the IT department, 2006 IS batch officer. And just while trying to understand how the government welfare schemes work, especially the DBT, direct benefit transfers, there was just this realization because I happened to be just randomly reading how Bitcoin works and then kept stumbled across blockchain. There was just this idea that what if we could automate or at least bring some level of transparency and some level of digitization in which in the process of how government delivery happens for different welfare schemes, as well as trying to digitize health records, land records, and so on. So it was in 2017 when I started reaching out to nearly everyone who I could find on LinkedIn, start adding them, start spamming them also, that there is an idea that we have over here in government of Chhattisgarh and we can work together. Of course, there's no sanction funding for it because this was 6 years ago and it was a very new thing then. But then people did respond. People came over all the way from Australia, from London. They were working from US. And we did some of India's first pilots in blockchain over there. We also so the first state-sponsored blockchain hackathon happened in Chhattisgarh in 2018, where we got a participation of 130 startups and companies who were primarily focusing upon the problem statements of the government. Now, while all of this was happening, that was quite a lot of successful stint. In fact, I even had the opportunity to present my work in the UK Parliament. I spent an entire day at the UK Prime Minister's residence and was nominated as a British Council Future Leaders Fellow. Now, all of this was happening parallelly, but I was also conducting workshops for free as much as I can. So because I understood that if this technology has to have a future, it needs to have a domain expertise as a partner. So one of these workshops just happened to be with India's largest farmer group. Around 13,000 farmers are connected together in a farmer producer company headed by Mr. Vilas Shinde, Sayadri Farms in Nashik. And after just explaining to them what blockchain does and understanding from them what we can do, beginning from traceability, that is when I decided that this sounds really wonderful to begin. So me and my co-founders back then, we decided to quit our jobs and begin EmerTech Innovations. So that is the birth of the startup. So yeah, that's been the journey until the startup began. Yeah, and especially, so should I explain regarding the EmerTech Innovations part now? Which portion do you want me to elaborate? I can focus there.
Yes, sure. So that's great to know, Gaurav, your journey into the blockchain. And so I believe your startup, your work right now is focused around the supply chain
Yeah.
and how that can be improved with the blockchain. So we would love to know your thoughts on how it can be done in general and what exact solutions are you bringing with your organization.
Okay. Should I explain or do you want me to do slides or I can explain verbally also?
Whatever you're more comfortable with, either way works.
Okay. So allow me to give a small I'll just share presentation. So the
Sure.
difference is we have to realize at some point that uh, as a technology, just because something is new does not ensure that it actually gets used in the longer run, right? So in order to bring that into focus, how do we actually end up doing that? We have to see what the domain really needs today and then slowly take it towards the future that we want to co-create. And that is the vision where I think Sayadri Farms really excelled. And I'll just briefly kind of explain what exactly it is that we did. Before that, I just want to say that for 2.5 years we were there at the client location, figuring how things could work over there. Because without that extensive collaboration, things would never have happened in the first place. So what I'm going to give is just a journey of just a yeah, it's just a journey in which the farmers themselves were leading this initiative a lot, and that was something very heartening to see, because you wouldn't expect that something of this sort in a startup scenario where mostly it is the co-founders, investors, and everyone else trying to lead it. So just a second. Can I share my screen, please?
Yes, sure.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'll talk. So EmerTech, the name basically derives from emerging technologies, and AgroTrust is our platform. But we realized that there were many blockchain platforms for traceability that were coming up during that time, around 2017, 18. I won't name them, but there were quite a few. And what they used to ask, and some of them still ask, is that whatever you're doing on the ground or in your digital processes, just repeat that data on our platform, copy paste it, and voila, you'll have blockchain. But you're just asking someone who's doing groundwork to do work twice, and your processes are not helping them in faster operations or more efficiencies or anything. It is just because the buzzword of blockchain was carrying the entire weight, but that was going to be short lived. So we decided not to do that. So just to briefly talk about the current team that we have, the co-founders, team members, advisors. So Dr. Jane Thompson, she was just here last week. She was the one who got me connected internationally way back in 2017 when I was working for government of Chhattisgarh. She flew all the way from Australia to Chhattisgarh to see the work that we're doing in government. And since then, she's been a constant part. Erin, Avilas, Sir, Alicia as well. We are a team of around 14 developers, but see, these are some of the oldest ones. Just briefly talking about a startup journey. So we won prizes in Switzerland with the central government as well as in Dubai. We have also been invited for the post-budget session by the Honorable Finance Minister, in which we discussed regarding what could be the potential for blockchain in agriculture. And in the Cisco Agri Challenge, which lasted for over 16 months with 844 agri-tech startups, we were given the award for the best technology. And this was the work that we had done earlier, just to briefly talk about it, in which the primary focus has been e-governance and blockchain. So that is the work I presented in UK Parliament. I was did a commission study for the Swiss Arts Council, in which I submitted a report regarding what could be the potential for NFTs in gaming way back in 2019 when they were not even that much big. I'm also the author of a Marathi book on blockchain. It's called Sakriche Swatantra, which was built because for an entire year in 2020, I was writing for Indian Express's Lok Satta newspaper. So I began right from the history of accounting to exactly what hashing works and what could be the future of Web3. So the book has already sold 4 editions in the past 2 months. We also had the wonderful opportunity of building a blockchain platform in the presence of Dalai Lama, headed by Dr. Harshdeep Kamble. It was just to show the symbolic endorsement of the Dalai Lama with blockchain. So that happened in my hometown of Aurangabad in November 2019. Now we'll get to the crux of the problem. So whatever you are going to see now, this is something that we had no background in. Absolutely, this was something that was taught to us by the farmer leaders, like Mr. Vilas Shinde sir, I just spoke about. So the problem is that now that farmers are trying to come together under a new entity, which is an FPC or a farmer producer organization, they need more help in digitization. So why even farmers do come together? Why do they need to come together? So what you see in front of you are some real receipts of farmers, and you can see how much meager money that they're making. 1 rupees -5. How can it be minus? Because sometimes the middleman will ask for, let's say, transportation charges, storage charges, just because the produce has been lying on his premises for a long time. Now, this is the sad story of small land holding farmers, and most of the problems stem because of the small land holding itself, because it makes it impossible to, you know, invest into it. You are at the mercy of the climate a lot. So, what to do about it? So, the small land holding farmers, as long as he or she is working in isolation, will always be exploited by middlemen. We won't have access to the market, and though there won't even be a possibility of building, let us say, an alternative to something like a CIBIL score, which is what most of the farmers don't have. But as I said, the farmers themselves are trying to do something, trying to come together, make farmer groups. And when the farmers are coming together, then they can take advantage of the collectivization process. Now I'm not selling 10 quintals, now I'm selling 1,000 quintals. So there's a difference in the bargaining power, for example. Now, this is where we wanted to focus. As a farmer collective, can we offer them something with blockchain as the backbone? So what we started doing, so the first problem that we tried to focus on was to see if we can help them track spillage and spoilage. Then try to see if we can build something for two-way transparency and traceability so that the farmers also have a view. And the third part is in an experimental stage. We are very much far in actually trying to make this happen because it's a very ambitious thing. Just trying to see if we can build something like a alternative CIBIL score for this. But for that, frankly, we're going to need partners also. So that's why the talks like this help. If someone listens to this and want to try out, can we do this? There's a company in Indonesia which is in blockchain which has actually done it, Hara, and they have a Hara token. So they are crowdsourcing data so as to give credit scores to different farmers so that they can avail loans. And banks want to do this because the customer base is suddenly increasing. If it has happened in Indonesia, it should definitely happen over here. It just needs the right set of partners to make things happen. So what we have is just a 3-step program to onboard farmer groups. Uh, in one place, we offer them digitization, and I'll just explain it. It will be much clearer over here. So it's a blockchain platform. We originally built it on multi-chain, and now we are figuring out which other platform should we or should we not migrate to. Let's say like Polygon. But what does this blockchain platform do? So its primary purpose is to connect the farmers with the consumers. But it won't happen directly. You would have to onboard companies onto it as a kind of a B2B solution. Now you start playing the game of fill in the blanks. So you have to digitize the entire value chain. And when I say digitize, now this is where I'm coming towards the problem. You have to build modules which will help the farmers or the people in the value chain do their activities on a daily basis. Traceability is something which comes as a byproduct. If traceability is your primary goal, and if you ask people to put in information additionally again and again, then it will fizzle out after, let's say, one media event, and people will stop working about it, or maybe, let's say, the first round of pre-seed funding and all. But it doesn't become a sustainable solution. And sometimes people are already using heavy systems. For example, Sayadri Farms uses SAP for nearly every internal inventory management to accounting and so many purposes. So in that case, you would need to do integrations also. So it is the integrations with the existing systems where the existing systems then act as oracles to your blockchain, as well as wherever there is a missing point within the value chain, you just build a module which caters to the need of the person on the ground. So for example, what we have at EmerTech Innovations, we have AgroTrust FarmDB. It's basically a farmer database in which they can use it for registering each other as a kind of a KYC with their plot location and details. We realize that not every farmer producer company is going to be able to afford something as expensive as SAP or something as heavy. So we built our own inventory management system called AgroTrust Invento. We have a QR code printer in which you can customize the different QR codes, which will fetch data from the blockchain. which we called Curiosity, QRIOCT for the name QR code. We have an AgroTrust SKU tracker. That is something also we've done. And then we've done integrations also. The beauty of having an entire digitized value chain is that then you can start adding many services on top of it. But what does the output look like? So this project lasted for 2.5 years. Currently, this is not ongoing. We have shifted our focus onto the cotton part. But this lasted for around 2 or 2.5 years. So between that, we printed 5.2 million, 52 lakh QR codes with complete blockchain backed traceability, in which you are entitled to see three kinds of information, like know your farmer, know your food, and know what happens with your money. So in some of the QR codes in which there was complete integration, you could also see, if you're buying something for 100 rupees, how much of those 100 rupees are actually going to the farmer. So in this case, you can see out of 141 are going, and so on, because there was integrations with the financial systems also. Then, while this was happening during the lockdown, under the leadership of Mr. Vilas Shinde and Mr. Abasaheb Kale, there was a decision to integrate and focus upon cotton, because that's a high value chain which can where the QR codes can have a larger impact. And unlike fruits and vegetables, you won't be throwing away the QR codes. Maybe when we are trying to do tracking from cotton right until t-shirts, something could happen. So we digitize the entire value chain. There's a farmer producer company headed by Mr. Irfan Sheikh in Marathwada at Balaghat. And from there, the cotton was procured, and then the information which was recorded within SAP was also then brought down within our blockchain system. And this is actually live. So you can go on. So the name of the brand is RU, and the name of the initiative is SFS Sayadri Farm Sustainable Grassroots Initiative, where Mr. Abbas Abkar is the CEO. This facility that you're seeing in front of you, it's in Nashik, completely owned by the farmers facility. So they do job work in between, but they own the endpoint. Over here, more than 35,000 QR codes have been printed on t-shirts. You can go on www.ru.world and directly purchase t-shirts with blockchain backed traceability. So over here, we are trying to have incremental approach in which more and more information is being, we're trying to add onto the blockchain platform. So that's one thing we're doing. And this is something just as an idea that Mr. Vilas Shinde sir had spoken about a lot. Varghese Kurian, the one who brought us Amul, him also. And there's something that I've also written in my book. So imagine just now you can skip aside the company work and kind of a larger idea for India. So how would blockchain hopefully do things over here? So look at this farmer collective, FC1. Now, a farmer collective is built upon geographical limitations. Let's say people in 50, 60 kilometers radius are coming together. Hence, you will have a mix of farmers. Let's say you have 100 cotton farmers, 100 silk farmers, 500 mango farmers. You travel in any direction, you will come across second farmer collective, and let's say this has 300 silk farmers, 500 cotton farmers, and so on. And now let's talk about an entire region. When I say region, I mean a climatically meaningful region. Like in Maharashtra, if you had to give an example, the different climatic regions are Marathwada, Konkan, Vidarbha, Khandesh, Paschim Maharashtra, and yeah, and so on. So within that entire region, what if we are able to connect the same crop farmers across different collectives on a single platform? So you would have a cotton blockchain, a silk blockchain, a mango blockchain. Why not? And why are we doing this? See, it is the same idea that instead of working alone, you're coming together. Now that you're already coming together, we are just trying to create a collective of collectives. So this is a hopeful idea that we could do. And Dr. Varghese Kurian has actually written about it. The way that he said it was way back, many decades ago, that the only hope for rural India is cooperation. There can't be any competition. It doesn't make sense. You have to cooperate. So he gave an example that, let's say there are two milk processing factories. One of them has an oversupply, one of them has an undersupply of raw material. Then instead of competing with each other, they join hands and work together. That is how they can actually hit the market in a better way. That is the story of Amul. So this needs to happen because the seesaw of the value chain is heavily tilted towards the retailer side. If we have to balance that seesaw, then this approach would potentially help. So this is some of the ideation part. We've been trying to publicize this idea as much as possible because, of course, it sounds very enticing on paper, but when we start working on ground, there are infinite challenges. But at least there should be an initiation of sorts. So we also made some news during the lockdown period through our platform. That's one, and because it was one of the first instances of blockchain being used at a production level at such high capacities, it also made news all across the media. And now what we are trying to do, so the cotton project is over there, is ongoing right now. We are trying to focus more upon our expertise as blockchain as technocrats, and we have been trying to work with one of the largest plastic recycling companies, Gemini, to see if we can also do tracking for the waste pickers, which we call reclaimers. So because they don't even have smartphones, so the challenge is how are we going to digitize that their work so that the garbage which is collected, it goes to small scrap dealer or katawala, it goes to the large scrap dealer, bada katawala, and then it goes to Gemini. During all of this, the reclaimers, they are not, their work is not documented anywhere, including their own identities are not documented anywhere. So trying to see if that could be, that completely unorganized, fragmented value chain could be digitized so that maybe CSR initiatives could focus on them and so on. We are also trying to see if we can work and build marketplaces for carbon credits, because if we can do that, then we can connect the farmers with the generation of farmer credits and so on. So there is a lot of experimentation again which is going on, while our core focus of onboarding more and more farmers is still there, but we are still ensuring that we don't miss out on the opportunity of, because how fast the technology is evolving in so many directions, we can't restrict ourselves to just one aspect of it. So as a startup, you go through many such deliberations, discussions, and ideations. And yeah, so that's where mostly we are right now. So if you want to have any specific questions that could be there, if you any specific portions you want me to elaborate, I would love to do that.
Sure. And so with that, thank you, Gaurav, for explaining your product in such detail. So now also, since you're talking about digitizing every step of this process, uh, which is currently taking place, and so what are the challenges in, so leaving apart blockchain? Just what are the challenges in first digitizing everything, and how can that be achieved?
Okay. So the challenges in digitization are as old as digitization, which is how do you actually ensure that people, it's actually solving a problem on the ground? Because manual processes have been there since way longer than even computers have been, and they have perfected themselves to a certain degree. There is a habit formation which happens, there is a dependency that happens, and sometimes digitization doesn't work in pockets. Sometimes it works only if everything is digitized. Otherwise, what is the point of just having one small link in the entire solution being digitized? So the challenges mostly are pertaining regarding, can we understand whether digitization can help it at all or not? For example, I'll give you, let's say the QR code printing part. Now, when the QR codes are printed earlier, it was digitized, but it was happening on a kind of a MS Paint kind of software in which you had to customize it again and again. And then the QR codes were simply not possible. Only you could do barcodes, because barcodes are not unique. They are the same for all SKUs. QR codes, even for the same SKU, would be unique. So that MS Paint kind of software was good only for barcodes. You can't have daily printing of 25,000 labels and 25,000 different files and so on. So they never even thought of coming up with QR codes. So what we did over there was figuring out how a single command can generate hundreds and hundreds of QR codes for them, right? And if that could be done, it would actually make their life easier also. So that was the whole focus, trying to make life easier on the ground, because your blockchain is see there's in blockchain we call it the oracle problem, right? That how do you ensure that the data which is going into the blockchain, the bridge between the physical world and the real world, how is that going to ensure that the data is right? So people say that yes, you need to do IoT and all, but it's just a cute answer to say, but because when you see people just say, ah, yes, IoT can solve the oracle problem, but exactly how? It is the devil is always in the details. Some processes have nothing to do with IoT. For example, the QR code printing part, or it could be fulfilling an online delivery part. Over there, I think that problem needs to be solved more by bringing in the entire processes into a seamless digitization manner, and blockchain just comes into the later, much later. So the real headaches or the real challenges are figuring out whether digitization can help here or not, and not saying that blockchain is a kind of a magical wand, and if you do this additional effort things will start happening, because that's not how it will happen. Many properties of blockchain are emergent in nature, not immediate in nature. So for the full scale magic of blockchain, we would have to wait. There would need to be enough data over there. And there would need to be more integrations and more value chains being onboarded on blockchain. But the primary challenges, I think, will in developing countries and our problems will always be, I think, in digitization, just figuring out what exactly is going to be the contribution of digital versus manual. Yeah.
Indeed. So, yeah, so I think there's a question from the audience. So Shalini wants to ask. Uh, so Shalini, would you like to speak and ask your question?
Good morning, sir, and thank you for giving me this opportunity that I can talk to sir. Thank you, sir. First of all, good morning to everyone and to Gaurav, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir,
Great to know you. Please let me know your question again.
yes, sir. Sir, actually, my question is जैसे आपने बताया, so are you comfortable in Hindi?
Yes, yes. पूरी तरीके से आप हिंदी में पूछिए.
जी सर, तो जैसे आपने बताया कि आपने 2000 समथिंग आपने स्टार्ट किया था, तो सर माय क्वेश्चन इज देन हाउ यू गेट आइडिया कि मुझे ब्लॉकचेन पे काम करना चाहिए, और आपने वो ही क्यों सोचा था, और सिर्फ फार्मा के प्रॉब्लम्स के लिए ही क्यों, मतलब देयर आर सो मेनी प्रॉब्लम्स इन हैकेथॉन्स एंड ऑल, देन व्हाई यू थिंकिंग ओनली फॉर द फार्मर्स, देयर आर सो मेनी प्रॉब्लम्स रिगार्डिंग टू स्टूडेंट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल आई आल्सो पार्टिसिपेट इन द हैकेथॉन, तो एक वहाँ पे था कि जो स्टूडेंट्स के लिए होता है वो करियर गाइडेंस के लिए नहीं होता, व्हाई यू नॉट वर्किंग ऑन दैट?
Yeah. So the first thing I remembered, I'm remembering this Urdu शायरी, हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले. So that's how most of the use cases are. हजारों use cases है ऐसे कि हर एक use case पे आपका दम निकल जाएगा. For me, I'll just say it in a very simple way. It's not a complex answer. It's a very simple thing to answer. A blockchain is like just let's say you can't clap with one hand. So blockchain is just one hand. In order to do that clap, the other hand, and in fact that is the 99% of the hand, not 50-50%, are the domain expertise people. You will always have blockchain developers. We are not going anywhere. And now that blockchain is in syllabus, I wrote syllabus for one of the universities in Maharashtra. And now it's going to become, you will have abundance of developers. But if you have a developer centric approach to it, it is doomed to fail. The only way a system like blockchain works is if the domain expertise people understand what blockchain is, they invite us as solution makers to figure out how we can solve their problems, and then take things ahead from there. So the way that I was doing is, so far I've conducted more than 300 workshops. I've taught in nearly around 12 states of India, in Switzerland, in UK. I've taught in Mississippi Coding Academy in US. And while I'm doing that, I'm always focusing upon the domain experts. Even the book that I've written, it is the first non-English book to have come out, not just the first Marathi book. And it is targeted not towards developers or computer science students. I mean, of course, they are a part of it, but mostly towards people who own businesses, who are busy in agriculture, pharmaceuticals, governments, policy making, Because if they don't understand blockchain, because it's not a technology, it's more of a philosophy, and it's more a new way of doing things. If they don't understand it, this technology won't have much future. That's why I think it's really, because for example, let's say what Vitalik Buterin says, that every other technology, I'm just trying to rephrase him because I don't remember the exact quote. He said that every technology that has come has tried to take away the jobs of the person at the bottom. Like driverless vehicles will take away jobs of drivers and so on. But he says blockchain is here to take away job of Uber itself, not the Uber driver. He says that it puts Uber out of the job and not blockchain, another driver out of the job. And that is the whole story behind Web3 and the creator economies going against the aggregator economies and so on. Now, that aspect of blockchain is entirely philosophical in nature, very little to do with technology, because technology will keep evolving. The people will start working, there will be heavy research there is like upon how it works, but where it works is where I think the final thing will lie. So why did I choose agriculture? Because after conducting hundreds of workshops, as I said, there was someone from the other side, the farmers collective, who said they are willing to use this solution, because we can't say that I'm going to solve this and start solving it. You have to explain to the leaders on the other side. We are not the leaders. We need to understand that the leaders are the ones who own the control over the domains, who should be able to see the promise of blockchain, and then they invite us to work over there. So if this approach is there, I think we could have sustainable solutions. Otherwise, it just becomes a game of raising funds after round based on an idea, and then it all flops after a couple of years. So yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sure, indeed. So also now moving on to the next question. As of this moment, what is the kind of support? So you mentioned that you're working with the government. So what is the kind of support that you're getting from the government and from the entire ecosystem? So now blockchain, as you mentioned, is only one part of the solution. And we need to firstly educate everyone. We need to get everyone on board ready to use this technology, create a network essentially. It's not a standalone thing. So what kind of initiatives or support are you getting on that?
Okay, so I stopped working for the government in 2019, and around 2018. Since then, it's been a startup. But when I say support from the government, it's been more, not a direct manner, but the government themselves has done something. So Niti Aayog, just to give a small recap, Niti Aayog in 2018 came up with India blockchain strategy. Then in October 2020, Tamil Nadu became the first state in India, and like I think currently the only state which has its own blockchain policy. Then in February 2022, this year, just a few months ago, in February, MITI, Ministry of Electronics and IT, came up with India National Blockchain Strategy. So the government is heavily promoting blockchain as long as it's there. In fact, there are two government tenders which came out and had a deadline this month itself. One was by Assam Police, Guwahati, in which they wanted blockchain for evidence collection. So all the evidence for crimes which are there, if they could be collected right in the on the spot itself, then for example, if I'm collecting photographs of the crime selection, then those photographs or blood samples, the moment that they're digitized, they want to put it on blockchain, because most of the time criminals go free if there is a tampering in evidence. Imagine a government has actually come up with a tender for that, and its deadline has already gone. Another was a tender by Jammu Kashmir government, in which they wanted blockchain-backed QR codes for their GI tagged handicrafts. So geographical indicators showing that this particular handicraft or piece of art has come only from the Jammu Kashmir region and not other places. That has actually happened. So imagine how proactive things have suddenly become within that space. All we need is to now that the different states should come up with their own state policies, because many subjects are state subjects like health, and that will require focus upon the policies and government tenders themselves actually going for it. What I'll also do is I'll just share a slide with my just contact details, since people would want to if they want to. Yeah. So just my email ID and contact number. Because if you want to discuss ideas and just throw around some brainstorming sessions, we can do that. Yeah.
Sure, indeed. So, finally, so you spoke about creating collectives of these farmers based on geographic and their produce. So, what kind of initiatives are you taking on that front, and how is that going?
Uh, so because it is too ambitious in nature, we are just trying to reach out to the right partners with the help of the network of our investors, which is IIT Bombay, Sign, Society of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We get a lot of help and connects from over there. Then of course the farmer producer companies, they are kind of leading it. But frankly speaking, right now we are only in the awareness stage. We need collaboration of some large partners, some large groups, which should understand and lead this idea. As developers, we are no one to lead this. We need the leading to happen from the farmers' side themselves. So that's what we're trying to do. I've been writing in agro journals also in Marathi, focusing upon uh, so the journals which are read widely by the farmers. So that's where I'm trying to popularize the idea as well. But so it's in a very awareness stage only.
Sure, indeed. So, with that, Gaurav, thank you very much for appearing on the show today, and we wish you best of luck for solving this very crucial problem that the farmers are facing today.
Thank you so much, and thanks to the entire team for this wonderful opportunity.